Well, hello there. I'm Nusha, also known as ferociousnprettypens on Instagram. If you're new here, which you should be new here because I'm new here as this is my first video, let me tell you a little bit about myself and what you're in store for. I am a fountain pen hobbyist. I'm into fountain pen inks as well as handwriting, penmanship, modern calligraphy, hand lettering, all of that good stuff. And I'm going to use this platform as a way to share my thoughts on that stuff, I guess. I've been posting on Instagram since around 2016 on fountain pens, fountain pen inks, and what I'm finding is that my captions are getting longer and longer because I have a lot to say, so may as well just take to video and share those with you guys. INKY, I'm filming. Yeah. So this is INKY. It's like literally everything that could possibly be distracting or happen is happening. Sorry about that. Anyway, so welcome. I'm going to try to post here at least once a week. I have a full-time job, so I'll do the best that I can to share, you know, ink reviews, my thoughts on different fountain pens, etc. Maybe do a tutorial here and there on methods that I use for hand lettering and modern calligraphy. I don't know. So for today's video, now that we've gotten introductions out of the way, I bought some Dieman's ink, and the first one that I wanted to share with you guys and do like a review on, I guess, is Tasmanian Robin Pink. So if you're interested in seeing that, keep watching. I do something called an ink one-pager, so if you follow the ferociousnprettypens account on Instagram, you're familiar with them. If not, you'll get up close and personal with them. I'm actually going to do a one-pager with you guys so you get to see it from start to finish. But they're literally just a page of me going through an ink and putting it through its paces. And I've been doing this since I first got into fountain pens years ago. So I literally have binders full of these ink one-pagers of all of the, you know, different inks that I've tried over the years, either sampled or owned. So this is something I do for myself, so I figured I may as well share it. The purpose of the ink one-pager, like I said, is to put an ink through its paces, and I always use Rhodia. The reason for that is Rhodia is pretty common paper in this hobby. It's relatively inexpensive compared to some of the other papers, so it's more accessible to people. And if a ink isn't going to do well on Rhodia, chances are it's not going to do well on other types of more economical paper. A lot of people like to use Tomoe River, and I'll insert some Tomoe River here and there just to give you examples of it. I've always done it on Rhodia, so I'm going to stick to doing it on Rhodia. I'll show you, you know, what it is in flex nibs, which are, you know, the ones that I have are vintage flex, so they're wet noodles. And I'll also show you in different nib sizes doing nib swaps in my Lamy, either All-Star, Vista, Safari, whatever. I'll take you through a 1.9, a 1.1, a broad, medium, and a fine. And I usually do a drawing. I do, you know, it's just what I do. So today it's going to be about Dieman's Tasmanian Robin Pink. So if you're interested to see the process of the ink one-pager, keep watching. If not, I'll put a timestamp as to the very end of the ink one-pager so that you can see it in its entirety. I don't know if anybody's going to watch this, but we're going to go for it. So how I usually do this is I have my handy dandy Rhodias. So this is a number 18 dot pad. And what I do is I take a sheet of paper and I put it underneath to protect this paper because sometimes ink might bleed through with my shenanigans. I've already done a swatch card. I do this for all of my inks. I have a Colodex, and so this is what it looks like. My lighting's kind of bright because I haven't figured out how to do lighting for this yet, but it's like a pinky red. So we have this ready. I have inked up my handy dandy Lamy Vista, and I usually start out with a 1.9 millimeter stainless steel nib. And I also have my vintage flex. This is a Waterman number 12. And, you know, let's not judge me over this. This one, you know, was totally my cat INKY's fault. He knocked it over. We're not even going to talk about how I left it out there for him to knock over. But anyway, it's still an amazing pen. It writes great. So it's an eyedropper. I've already filled this up. And so let's get started. And also I usually put a sheet of paper down for myself so that I don't get my hand oils on the page, because it will affect how the ink interacts with the paper. So let's get started. I'm gonna zoom you guys in so you guys can see what I'm doing. So first impressions, so far this ink is pretty shady. I'm not really seeing any sheen yet on this specific paper, but looks pretty shady to me. And I really do like this color. It's a reddish pink is what I would call it. It's a pretty color. I like very much. Okay, now for the flexation. Now, what's tricky about this is Waterman number 12, my pen, is such a freaking hose. I don't want to say that it's the fault of the paper or the fault of the ink, but this is a hose of a pen. So sometimes when I do this, I don't flex it as much because it feathers, but that's okay. That's the whole point of these pages, is to see what the ink is going to do on Rhodia. So let's go. I know this is gonna feather. It's already starting. Ruh-roh raggy. So you can already see that it is starting to feather. I might fast forward through this part. Oof, oof, oof. Ay, 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 ay. So I went and I grabbed some Tomoe River paper. This is 52 GSM. And I wanted to show you guys how crooked I write, because I don't have a guide underneath this, so don't judge me. But let me show you guys this. So I'm gonna put that aside and let it dry, because it is really freaking wet. All right, back to this though. Now, before I go on to the next nib, what I usually do is, there is a part of my INKY pages that you guys usually don't get to see because my swatch card on Instagram is usually right over it. I usually like to just record my thoughts somewhere on the sheet, so I have an area called The Verdict. Dun dun dun! Literally everything I do is in an effort to use up as much ink as possible, because I own too much ink. And you know, it's not a problem. I regret nothing except for some of the inks that I bought. So we're just gonna put this over here so that I don't mess it up, because that's been known to happen before. Fine, everything's fine. It's all fine. If you know anybody that just says fine whenever you ask them about stuff, it's probably not fine, unless they're talking about a fountain pen nib, in which case it's fine. Now for the piece de resistance, we go with the broad nib. Yeah, go ahead and judge my crooked line. That's okay. It's all right. I know about it. It's cool. The next phase of the INKY pager, my friends, is the hand lettering portion. I like to do is, I have my Pentel water brush. I had to go grab this. So what I like to do now is, for the hand lettering portion, this is like a watercolor mixer doohickey. You could use, I don't know, sauce dipping thingamabob, whatever. You could use whatever you want, but this is just what I use. And this is a strawberry pipette. I do this so that I don't contaminate my ink. If this was a sample vial, I would literally just dip this into the sample vial. But because I own the ink and I don't want to ruin it, I take a little bit not a ton, and I put it in here. And this has water in it already, and I'm dipping it into here. And then now we play and hope we don't fuck it up. let's you know, get it on the first try. Here's hoping. And the battery died. Alright, that is done. And now we try to figure out what we're gonna draw while we wait for that to dry. Oh my god, it's such a cute bird. Look at it. I just want to smush it. But no, not in a violent way. In a far away, I respect nature sort of way. Okay, so we're gonna pick something easy. Now, you could use any pencil. You could use a regular pencil. Just make sure it's really light. Apologize to all of the Tasmanian robins in the world whose likeness I am completely messing up. Okay, now for a random fact. Alright, so to wrap this up, I'm going to do the verdict in a second, but I wanted to show you guys the on Tomoe River, what this ended up looking like. What's interesting about this ink is for how wet it is, it didn't really sheen very much. So if you aren't a fan of sheen, this is definitely an ink that you would like, but it is very wet and it behaves really well on Tomoe River. I gotta go back and do the verdict. So that is it. All in all, I really like this color. It's very pretty. I do like how it shades. I'm a little bit disappointed that it doesn't sheen, but let me zoom you guys in on this so that we can look at this in detail. So basically what I'll say about this ink is that it's not for Rhodia. If you are a Rhodia user or a paper similar to Rhodia, this is going to feather like crazy. And what I found interesting was that it even feathered in the, you know, finer nib. And you actually see it in the medium and the broad too in certain places. So all in all, this is not an ink for Rhodia, no matter what type of a nib you use. If you have a super dry writer, this is a good ink, I think, for that type of a pen. So I'm gonna wrap up and we can do the closing thoughts on the ink. All right, so what do I think about this ink? So far, what I'll tell you is if you like sheen, this is probably not for you. This is a shading ink. It shades beautifully. I love the color. The pink is like a, you know, it's not a bright, bright pink, but it's not a completely muted pink. It's kind of in that middle. So I don't know. I like color, so this works for me. But if you are somebody that uses Rhodia, this is absolutely not for you. As you saw while I was doing the ink one pager, I had a lot of issues with it feathering, not just in the vintage flex, which that's going to happen because it's such a wet noodle, but I also had issues with it in the Lamy Fine and just across the board. So if that's your jam for paper, then this ink is not going to be one that's going to be very usable for you. But if that's not an issue for you, I would say go for it. This is a lovely ink, and I have a few more colors from this line that I'm really looking forward to using in a similar manner to see if all of the inks in this line are this way on Rhodia or if it was just this ink. But all in all, I like it. I have zero regrets. I tend to blind buy ink all of the time, and every once in a while I'll run into something where I'm like, why did I buy that? This is definitely not one of them. So if this color interests you, if paper isn't an issue, then I would say this is a definite recommend. So that's that. Those are my thoughts. I hope you enjoyed watching. What do you think about, you know, this brand of inks out of Australia? Have you tried this color? What did you think of it? Leave it in the comments. Anyway, I hope you're doing well, and keep writing.